Startup ecosystem, what the idea is that you have to learn how to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. And once you learn how to do that, then you can bring in all the stakeholders and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive, and so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up, and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America, we do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally. And we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about and language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. I have this salon and I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow. Send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Start Up on the Blocks, Lloyd Richard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Start Up on the Blocks.
Welcome, welcome. How are you, Dr. Bell?
I'm doing well. That intro was amazing. I know some of those founders too and have
Oh,
had the chance to
fantastic.
mentor a few, so that was awesome.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I guess Gren, he assumed I knew you, and and he thought I actually had you on before, but I said no, I hadn't, so that was pretty. But he was definitely excited about meeting you and everything. So I was glad he was able to make me aware of how we need to have you on the show to
Aw,
help founders out.
cute.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I guess we were over at the Money Fest, right? That was the end of March or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Early first quarter. Yeah.
yeah. And I thought that was a great event because it explains the world of entrepreneurs and startups and nonprofits and in this whole entrepreneur ecosystem. You got one track for startups trying to build scalable businesses, and then you got the traditional business track where you're going after loans and grants and stuff, and then you got the nonprofit. So I thought that was pretty amazing to have it lined up like that.
Those three streams. I hadn't seen that done before. Moneyfest has been around for a while, but I think the entire ecosystem is growing and starting to learn that there are some non-traditional paths to
Yes.
get to the next stage. So, I mean, hats off to Todd Greer and his team for looking at the other two tracks outside of venture capital.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And one of the challenges with the venture capital investment track, um, what I like about that, even though I'm not an advocate for that investment thing, the first accelerator program I was in, they said build your growth based on your customers instead of investment. But if you need investment, no problem, because a lot of people just haven't warmed up to the idea about investment. But the neat thing about it's sort of, if you pretend you're going to go after investment, it makes you do the right things with your company. Yeah,
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 yeah, I would agree.
yeah, and so pointing out for because those investors, they want you to be growing so they can get a return on their investment, right?
That whole traction word that nobody knows about until it's time to look for investors. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Right,
So
that
yeah,
part.
yeah. What's been your experience with that traction word in like even in these pitch competitions you were been involved in that traction
So,
word? Yeah, tell how
yeah,
what you think about this traction word.
right. So according to the traditional track for VCs, I did everything backwards. So I had been consulting and working in my arena for almost 40 years
Wow.
before I even knew that it was a market valuable product. Like
Okay.
my heart and my mission was to make sure that students and student athletes who wanted to go into college in their career without debt, that they had a vehicle to do such. And the gatekeeper for most of them was a standardized test, be it the ASVAB for the military or the ACT or SAT for traditional K-12, or even for adult learners who wanted a second career, like students who may have been teachers before and decided they wanted to be nurses and had a master's in education and found out they had to have an 18 on the ACT to become a RN. And
Wow.
it was so interesting that, people would be like, how am I supposed to get high quality, cost effective test prep? I didn't even know that was a thing or a buzzword, but I did it absolutely backwards. I made sure that my product worked first.
Okay.
And then I thought about like how I was going to scale, because my original model was one-on-one. I was doing tutoring,
Yes.
with individual students. And then
Yes.
very soon I realized when we started to get the type of returns that we got, like for the ACT, scores go up 5 to 10 points in 5 weeks.
Yes.
SAT 100 to 200 points, which was completely different than the way the market was running. Like my competitor was only get maybe 1 or 2 points on the ACT, maybe 50 points or 100 points on the SAT over 6 months to a year.
Yes.
That I had something that was niched. And I
Mhm.
looked at the population that I was working with. Most of the students that I started with were 1 to 3, sometimes 5 grade levels behind in English and math.
Wow.
And so very early on, I started going from individual contracts to contracts for churches, then contracts
Okay.
for organizations, then contracts for athletes, then athletic organizations, then
Gotcha.
contracts for schools, and then contracts for districts and states. And so I really didn't have the opportunity to go after venture capital. I was
Mhm.
literally, when you say the difference between being in the business and on
Yes.
the business, I was in the business. And
Yes.
so the last maybe 3 years is when we became an LLC in 2021. Just was really blessed. I mean, we 3X, we won 6 pitch competitions, which generated almost $200,000 of
Fantastic. Fantastic. Definitely got to learn.
non-dilutive
Yeah.
capital, right?
Mhm.
But we had been cash positive from the onset. So
Good.
what I'm learning and still learning is making sure for me that I didn't grow faster than I could accommodate, because it's
Right.
very important to me that my product that I have globally still gives 5 to 10 point increases on the ACT, 100 to 200 point increases on the SAT in 5 weeks. So I didn't want to dilute my
Right.
product and scale too fast just
Right.
because the industry had no expectation of
Yes.
who I was. So my brand, that was important to me. And
Fantastic.
branding and sales led me to think about VC. And I had to have a reason for the funds. Like some people do a raise just to do a raise to say, I raised $1 million.
Yeah.
But I always caution people, raising means that you now have tremendous partners who sometimes
Yes.
have very strong voices,
Yes.
which may be very different than your mission and your vision.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So yeah, so that's interesting. But believe it or not, most startups, successful startups, they actually started doing it manually, just like you started doing it manually to kind of prove it out before they go out and build some type of platform to kind of help it grow a lot faster. And so, yeah, so that's important. But the reason why I was asking about that word traction is because, that's the number one thing the investor is going to look for. How the people, even not just an investor, like if you want to get into a pitch competition, if you want to get into apply for a grant, you want to get into a pre-accelerated program or a program, they want to know how much traction, and that traction curve, is just so important.
Yeah, and I would say for new founders, it's super important for you to know your numbers.
Hmm.
I wasn't a numbers person when I first started. Now that we've done 300,000 students, I'm looking at, year to year growth, how we're doing month to month, how we're doing week to week. But I do want to caution new founders and even experienced founders, knowing your numbers is one thing, but being so driven by your numbers that you forget your why can also become a critical Achilles heel. Like it can really stop you. Like, I mean, just being honest and very transparent, like I had the opportunity to take a multi-million-dollar contract, but it would have stretched my company and my academic coaches so far that they wouldn't have enjoyed the contract. Would we have made a lot of money? Absolutely. Would I probably have lost most of the people who've been with me over the last 10 years? Absolutely. And so for our traction, I mean, just we started tracking when we became an LLC. We went from 122 to 298 to 403 to $1 million in 4 years, a little over $1 million. And so it was like 2x, 2x, 3x. I mean, you hear it all the time with venture capitalists. They'll ask for you to 3x, 3x, then 2x, 2x, 2x. It wasn't one of the things that we were going for. We literally buckled down and wanted every single person that was an academic coach in my company to have an opportunity to grow the brand. Many of the students who came through my program are still employed by our company. We pay $25 an hour. We're 3 times minimum wage. And so it's going back to your core pillars. I think if more founders stay focused and true to their core pillars, the money will come. It will definitely come.
Yeah, and one thing I want you to think about. So on these different tests, ACT, SAT, and all these different tests you mentioned, what's the analogy for founders? What is that analogy for founders? Is it the founder IQ, or what is it? And that's kind of what I've been thinking about based on what I learned about you, is because that's what founders are struggling with. They don't know what they need to know to communicate with to the pitch competition, to put out the application for the pitch competition. They don't know what they need to do to like apply for a grant. They don't know what the measurement is. So like your ACT, you get a score, but so like, and you had experience with Make Startups with that no boundaries thing, and that's one of the things they try to do a rubric to see how well you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think in your case, you're probably more experienced in that rubric than anybody.
So I mean, when I think about the ACT and making parallels for founders and trying to prepare for test prep, it's very simple. I mean, it's a great analogy, because to do well on the ACT, you have to know what is being tested. And so many times, like some of my competitors will offer tutoring for information that's not being tested, because there's a knowledge deficit out there on what is important. I think for founders, that knowledge deficit is what hurts new founders the most. So I'll give you an example. I didn't know what a pitch deck was, had no earthly idea, didn't know what was important to have in that pitch deck. And so to be better at pitching, I literally went online to look at people who did pitches and how they did their pitches. And I literally kind of patterned myself. There was one person I was super impressed with who did his entire 20-minute pitch with by memory. And I was like, oh, by no means am I at that point. But now, having done pitch competitions over and over again, it really wasn't that difficult, because it's the same cadence. And even if you miss some of the important facts that you may have, there's these bullet points on each slide that as soon as you see that slide, you're like, oh, I need to say these things. So, in that analogy, like, it's knowing the content and understanding your timing. That is what we teach for ACT prep. If you don't know the content, it doesn't make a difference. If I give you 5 days, you'll still get the wrong answer. But if you don't know your timing, if you have good content, but you're taking the test too slow, you still won't get enough questions correct to get the score that you want. So when I think about that for founders, you got to know the right timing for your business as well. You've got to fail very fast and fail forward, and understand that it's important for you to fail. It's important for you to know that something that you think that your customers like or need may not necessarily be, you might be too close to it. So
Yeah.
it's important for you to go out in the community, to let people experience your product, to take their feedback very seriously. And that's what we did with ACT prep. Like, it wasn't enough for us to have students just have a score increase. We wanted students to have a score increase that led to the eradication of intergenerational poverty. If I'm looking as a new starter and a startup, it's like, are you so married to having a business and being an entrepreneur that you lose sight of what it is you're really selling? Right. And if it's something that you founded yourself, sometimes it's hard to separate the founder from the product. And when you're in the beginning, it's very founder led. It's very much you and who you are. But one of the things that I found in scalability is, if I was completely out of my business and I didn't check in with my business for an entire year, would my business still be able to run in the way that I want it to run, with the same heart and spirit that I had? It won't be 100% Valencia, but how close to the mission, the vision, and the operations when I started will it be if I scale to 100 million clients? And so that transition, I think, if it happens early, scaling becomes very easy for you, because you realize it was never about you in the beginning.
Right. That's definitely a mic drop there on that one for sure. Yeah. So, and I like the idea that we going down this path to help founders. Your strategy with the test prep. How does it actually compare with a strategy for a founder doing a startup? But for me, that's the number one thing that we've been trying to do over the past almost 5 years now, is help founders realize that there's some fundamental things you have to know if you want to get the help to build whatever you're building. And so, but I never thought about it until as a test, like what you're talking about, until just you sort of make it. So when I look at the co-founder OS measuring, I said that's pretty amazing to get some feedback on how well you're answering these 8 questions that the pitch competition application, when you fill it out, if you fill it out and you don't thoroughly answer the questions, because in order for you to get in those pitch competition, you got to articulate what your business is in order to get into it. And so there's like those 2 steps there.
Yeah. And what I also found, entrepreneurs stay in their headspace. And sometimes it's super hard for you to articulate all of the things that are going on when you're thinking about what it is that you want to sell. So when I first started, I couldn't articulate that I just wanted to do test prep.
Okay.
I would go, I'm telling you, like, we used to call it going around Tanker's Barn, which is an old adage.
Okay.
But literally, like, I would be talking about, okay, and then we infuse character to the children. And then the children started to come to school because they really enjoy learning. And now we've taught them critical thinking. And, I had gone down maybe 17, 18 things before I even got to the fact. And, they'll do good on their ACT and SAT. And I think being in an accelerator, my first accelerator that I was a part of, and the feedback that the person gave me when I was trying to explain what my product was, she was like, I have absolutely no idea what you do. You do it well and people pay for it, but she's like, what is it? And I just was like, how do I then articulate to people who know nothing about my space what it is that I do and make it valuable enough that they would buy it? Even if they didn't understand it, they knew they needed it. And that changed the way that I communicated my product. Now, everybody understood debt. Everybody understood loans.
Yeah.
And they were like, it went from, she's the GOAT that helps people do well on the ACT, to, that's that lady that can make sure you don't have student loans. I didn't care how they were communicating it to their friends, as long as it came back that you paid this fee for this service,
Hmm.
and the end result for you is XYZ. And I
Yeah.
think if more founders sat down and said, I sell this for this price and it does this,
Yeah.
they would
So
be great.
yeah. So what you just described was in our Lean Stack business model design program. It's like the why now elevator pitch. It's like the customer, one particular party, one customer segment, the problem that customer segment has, what they're currently doing or using, and then the value proposition. You don't even mention the solution, and so that's what that is, and that's what you use to get the attention, to get help, for people to hear more.
Yeah, and I would think also too, Lloyd, I learned about pain points really
Hmm.
early. So
Yes.
people like, gosh, Valencia, your product solves this pain point. And then I'm just like, okay, is that a vertical? Is that like, do I even want to go down that route? Like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you're a workforce development solution. I was like, we may be, but that's not necessarily what I started off being. So
Yeah.
when I look at the evolution of my product from when we
Hmm.
started to where we are now,
Yeah.
I had to change my personas a lot.
Yeah.
So I have different pitches for different audiences
Yes.
because they have different pain points.
Yes. Okay. That so I'm glad you brought that up, because see, and that's why in the lean stack, the lean canvas, it says list all your customer segments. And then you want to you go through this stress testing to for desirability to eliminate the customer segment that you don't need to waste time with. And then as you do your desirability, you get rid of some of the customer segments. You do your sustainability, which is based on your pricing model. You get rid of some of the customer segments, and the feasibility also gets rid of some of the customer segments. And so
See,
that's what the whole purpose of the program is.
See, I didn't have all the customer segments or any of that. I literally would keep every single person that went through our program on an Excel spreadsheet. And then I started looking at, okay, who was the student? What was
Hmm.
their age? What grade
Yeah.
they were in?
Yeah.
And then who was the buyer? And I found for what I do very early on that my product needed to be kid friendly,
Yes.
but my buyers had absolutely no idea of what was necessary for scores to go up.
Right.
And that helped me a lot because as we grew, the buyer changed. And I'm learning very much so, like at the state level and at the national level, my buyer, who might be a chief technical officer, is not
Mhm.
proximate at all to my
Yeah.
user.
That's
And my
exactly right.
buyer was like, I want to make one phone call, purchase 500,000 subscriptions, and spend
Hmm.
my budget for the day.
Yeah.
They were not necessarily concerned about the principal who received those subscriptions or the child that had to use the subscription. That was someone else's responsibility.
Yes.
And very quickly, I learned that I did not need to be the person making that conversation
Okay.
because it was very, very close to my heart. And so
Yeah.
I had to bring on fractional people who just stayed in that vernacular. They were accustomed to making $31, $41 million deals, and it
Hmm.
didn't bother them at all that the person on the other end didn't know that, this child was not going to use their subscription. And I think the best feedback that I got at that level was I remember a CTO say, Valencia, I'm going to spend this money, whether it's
Hmm.
with someone like you who can really get high scores, or it's someone who just has subscriptions that has checked all the boxes. So you make the decision, you can be in your feelings and lose this contract, or you can get this contract. And then maybe you do PD, maybe you do some other things where you get warm and fuzzies. But right now, we just need to sign this contract and spend this money. And I was like, okay, I need to have people around me
Yes.
who really flow in that lane. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you just hit another strategy that I haven't seen implemented with some of the founders that are in the ed tech space. So using these fractional people to go in and do these deals with these big school boards and whatever. But the other thing that you were saying early on is is you call your buyers and your users. So typically we use the term customer and users. And so and that's another thing that, and I made that mistake with my first mobile application that I was developing back in the early 2010s. I went out and talked to a bunch of users and got great feedback, but I didn't go out and talk to my buyers, my customers. And so when I started, once we got launched the app, then I went and talked to those customers. They said, "What, they were like confused." But what I learned is I should have included them in the beginning along with my users. So what I was building, it would have included the stuff that they needed to kind of move forward.
So along that lines, I'll give you another thing that we did. So
Okay.
I never did pricing
Okay.
comparisons. When I started, I used to do this for free. And so when I did it for free, then I started charging, I'll never forget, I was charging $25, and I thought that I was just just being totally unreasonable in my prices. Then we went from $25 to $75 to $125. And then I had one of my advisors say, "Valencia, what is the normal cost for the type of service that you're providing at the value proposition that you're giving?" Okay,
Yeah.
so that went straight over my head. I was like, "So can you break that down in first grade terms?" She was like, "So if you and your competitors were standing on the block and everybody was trying to buy lemonade, and first of all, does all of y'all's lemonade taste the same?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." She's like, "Okay, so you know the difference between your lemonade and theirs." She's like, "Okay, well, how much are they selling their lemonade for?" And I was like, $8,000 for a 6-week class. And she's like, "And you're selling your lemonade for $25. But their lemonade is not even made out of real lemons. Do you see a problem?" And so from that moment on, I had 3 pricing structures.
Yeah.
I had a pricing structure for people who needed it, but honestly couldn't afford it.
Okay.
I had a pricing structure for people who needed it and could afford it.
Okay.
And then I had a pricing structure for people who could afford it and wanted a carte blanche one-on-one time with me.
Gotcha.
It wasn't going to necessarily make their score any better, but that was more parent therapy than it was actually helping kids.
Yeah.
But I realized that parents were like, "This is stressful, and I don't know about this college and career and this thing." And they just needed somebody to just, talk to. And I'm like, "Okay, well, my time is valuable. This is not test prep. So why don't we let your child go over here with the tutor, and then you and I can literally be in this other Zoom room, and for the amount of time that they're tutoring, you can ask me any question that you want." So that was like having Donna Karen New York Couture, DKNY for Target, and Donna Karen for like a lower brand. But it was still the same test prep, but I had to differentiate how I sold it.
Fantastic. So one of the things when you're talking about pricing in the Lean Stack platform, which is basically the way we teach the business model design from Ash Mori, and so it has this when you're doing your because what you just said, if you had kept charging $25, you would have been out of business now, right?
Probably.
Yeah, and so the deal is that that's called the viability test, and so you use your pricing and your metrics and your goal of what you want to make, and so the traction roadmap, it actually figures out what you have to do in order to meet your goal. And so, like, let's say if your goal was $1 million in 3 years of annual recurring revenue, and your pricing was $100 per customer per year, then it would figure out over the 3-year period from the beginning to the 3-year thing, your customer sales funnel. And so each month, it would print out a table each month of how many people you got to get in your sales funnel in order for you to meet your goal. And so, but the other thing it had in there was it has the scaling rate. So a 10x rate, or you can put anything else, but Ash always says just put the 10x rate in there. And the reason for that is what you said earlier. is because if you try to grow too fast, you can't learn and you can't handle it. So the 10x rate allows you to grow real slow, and then once you figure out everything, then you can scale.
So I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
I was not aware of how important it was for me to know every single portion of my business and run my business. If everyone walked away, I could do
Okay.
every function that was necessary for my
Okay.
business.
I hadn't heard
The
that
reason
before.
that the reason that I say that is because when I was charging $25 an hour, it was a hobby.
Okay.
It wasn't an MVP. It was
Right.
something that I did because I would work with a couple of children here and
Yeah.
a couple of children there. And, it wasn't really and that I had to change how I thought about my business, because it was like I knew it was working, but you have to understand where you come from to know where you're going. So
Right.
this was a mission for me. I was doing this at churches, at the YMCA, like
Yeah.
for family, friends. It wasn't, oh, okay, well, tomorrow, I need to go and get 18 customers in order to meet my 10x goal.
Yeah.
That wasn't my thing. And that's one of the reasons I became a benefit corporation and went through the BIA assessment, is because I want, like, when I wear this badge, people who understand benefit corporations are like, yeah, she's mission driven.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a pivotal point for me, understanding that these numbers and these critical functions, like, you have to know the essential functions for your business. So I started writing down, like, essentially, I have to have an academic coach and they have to be trained by me so they can understand what I'm doing. And so
Yeah.
I started replicating myself into
Fantastic.
core people, but that model isn't scalable at the 100,000 students a day situation, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
two things I started doing. Number one, I started reading autobiographies of women founders
Okay.
who were, and it was very hard because there weren't a lot of women founders in EdTech.
Yeah.
And then I realized literally a month ago that there are only 34 African American women in the United States who have done $1 million raise. And one of them happens to be in my ecosystem. And it was funny because when we talked, she said, I didn't do it the way that you did it. I didn't have an MVP. I needed those funds to get to MVP status, which is so funny to me because now when I think about taking $1 million of venture capital, like $1 million of venture capital for me would catapult my business to be $100 million business in about 3 months. Like,
Mhm.
I know which essential functions that money would go toward.
Okay.
So I'm just being very cautionary to people who don't know their essential functions. What do I mean by that? What makes your business work?
Yeah.
And who has to be in those roles for the car to drive?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have the car, forget it. But if you do have the car and you have people who cannot move between the functions of your business, and if one person takes a week off, your entire financial profile is gone. If you are so dependent on other people for all of your functions, you don't even know how to hire correctly. You'll make a
Yeah.
critical mishap on your first hire, because just because they went to the Wharton Business School doesn't mean they understand how your business works. They're just crunching numbers. I needed people around me who could hold up my arms and understood where I was going. So if something happened to me, they're like, oh no, Valencia, I could teach the class. Oh no, Valencia, I know how we're supposed to take in the funds, how we're supposed to, re-up the website, all of those things. Those are pillars in your business, and you
Mhm.
don't need community furniture or seasonal people. You need seasoned
Pillars.
people that want to grow with you.
Yeah. So what you just described is what another platform we have is called Startup Science. And so that's about the operation of your business. You go from a vision to an exit. And so it's the different phases that your business go through. And so, and one of the phases is a go-to-market phase. And the gentleman, Greg Shepard, that funded the creation of this program, he had went through 12 exits and totaling several $1 billion. And everything he learned, he put in this training course.
That's amazing.
Yep. And so you definitely need to take a look at it. But that's because he said what he said that relates to what you said. It's not why business fail; it's how they fail. And so
Absolutely.
and so what basically when people got their MVP and they're going to market, and they get that money that they raise, and then they go out and hire a bunch of people, but they don't have all their standard process, so they hire the people, and the people don't know what to do, and then so you have to make sure that you like you said, every position in your everything, all the procedures, you have to get that down. It can be really simple, but now when you hire people, they know what to do.
And I will say this. So because you're in your headspace so much,
Yeah.
right? You think, okay, I have communicated this. They understand what I want them to do. But as a founder, you have to have enough stick-to-itiveness to understand that when people are learning, their learning curve is not going to be what you expect.
Yes.
And so, for me, I have a person that I trained to be my chief academic officer, and like she just was up under me for an entire year. I mean, she could run my business without me.
Yeah.
As we grew, I realized that there were functions that I needed that did not generate any profit at all. But if I didn't have those functions and those people in place, all of the profit that I made would be like water going through a hand that's open like this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, no one teaches you that. It's just
Right.
like, okay, well, I used to do my own books and now I have a bookkeeper. What do you mean? Now I need a CPA. I used to do my own contracts. What do you mean now? I need a corporate attorney to protect my IP who charges $500 an hour. Maybe, depending on what kind, if it's an international contract, who might charge $1,500 an hour. But as you grow, these things are invaluable to help you get to the next step. And sometimes you don't have that mentor pool around. Shouts out to you, Lloyd, for being that mentor. That is why I say it's so important for you to read, to grow, to take time out for yourself, to be balanced. Because what good is it for you to make $100 million and then you're so sick because you hadn't had sleep in 6 months? All of these things are important. You as the founder, think of yourself, you are so instrumental in making sure that your business gets to the next level. You have to be a good caretaker of you as well. That's why you need to get these things out of your head onto paper so that they can easily be replicated with those people.
Yes. And there are a lot of things we could talk about. I do want to talk about the benefits corporation thing, but I just want to make the audience aware. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Belle, feel free to start putting them in the chat. Yeah. So you remember at the Money Fest, I was telling you, like I went in the nonprofit track, and so I didn't get a chance to see your session, but I was telling you that each session I went in, your name came up several times, and they were bragging on you. And then the one session, it was a guy from Georgia, and he was talking about the Benefits Corporation. So like, so what I need from you right now, so is to kind of re-step your journey, because you said you were doing a lot of things and you learned a lot of things over the 40 years, and then you formed the LLC, and just kind of help us with your journey, and then what actually was the reason for doing this benefit corporation.
Sure. So I started out as a consultant. I did not come through an educational background. I was a biomedical engineer who went and got a nursing degree, who then went back and got a systems engineering degree. And I literally finished my doctorate in education in 2023 from the University of Southern California, fight on, strictly because I got tired of people telling me that I didn't know what I was doing in education because I didn't have an education degree. So I applied to USC and Harvard, and USC had an amazing online program. And that is why I chose USC, because I knew that I wanted to birth an online business. So I needed to find out how online businesses work. And Alan Arkatov, who at the time had created 2U, was one of the advisors in that program. And I mean, I got to pick his brain because he was one of my teachers. Doug Lynch, who is the creator of online education at Wharton, was my econ teacher. So, it was just like, okay, Like I'm in the middle of the people who can really make things happen. So I started out as a consulting company. I was a sole proprietorship. I was 1099ing people, happily making six figures, helping people. And then people like, hey, can I buy that? And I was like, buy what? And they're like, whatever it is you're teaching. And I was like, oh, I don't have a widget for you to buy. You're buying me. Then people were like, no. You need to package it and you need to sell it. And so I tell people it was like water. I was giving out water to people who were dying of dehydration. When I was giving it out for free, nobody wanted it. As soon as I put it in a bottle, slapped a label on the top of it, and gave it a price, people were like, oh, I want that. And I want 15 of them or 20 of them. Didn't do a lot of research on pricing, just kind of went out there and said, okay, if people will pay me, I'll do it. Started doing pitch competitions, literally so that I could understand how to speak business to business people. And started winning pitch competitions, and each pitch competition gave me free stuff. So free marketing, free slide decks, free mentorship in legal, just things that I would have known that I even needed. After that, they were like, you need to be an LLC, Valencia. You absolutely need to have a way to protect your business and your IP. Became an LLC in 2021. In my LLC journey, I won a pitch competition that gave me the ability to meet Nathan Stuck. That is the person you were talking about. He said, Valencia, you're very mission driven. Have you ever even heard of benefit corporations? And I was like, well, what is that? And he's like, there is a tremendous community of people who put their mission before money. They put their passion before product. And I think that this will give you the ability to lead with your heart and still make the kind of profit that you want to do. The BIA assessment is probably the most grueling thing that I've ever been through in my entire life, including my dissertation. I answered, it took me about 6 months to complete it with Nathan.
Wow.
We answered roughly about 4,500 questions about every aspect of my business.
Okay.
And then they have a reviewer come through your application. Well, to apply to be a benefit corporation is about $10,000. Because I was in the pitch competition, not only did they pay for it, but they paid for someone to come and do my application. A lot of businesses don't become benefit corporations because they apply, but they don't have, you have to get a certain score. You have to give above an 80 from your reviewer in order to be a B Corp. Okay. My reviewer was from Czechoslovakia, who knew nothing about redlining or poor performing schools. And I mean, to this day, I praise God for Nathan, because as they're going through your review, if they really don't think that you have scored the points, they will just start taking points away from what you wrote. And so, I was just like, God, just please let us get 80. Like this has been such an excruciating amount of work. But what it did for me, it focused my business so tremendously. Like I came out of that going, this is what we do. This is what we don't do. We don't target this. We do target that. And it was funny because I was supposed to get 80, and I think I got like 125 points, one of the highest scores, and was blessed to become the first African-American BIPOC female-led benefit corporation in the state of Alabama. There are two now. Okay. But what it did do for me, the benefit corporation opened me up to B Corp Global. And that is how I went global, because people don't think Ben & Jerry's is a B Corp. Patagonia is a B Corp. I was meeting the CEOs of those companies who were like, oh, guess what? I have employees that have children that need ACT and SAT prep. And are you willing to put a discount? Do you understand? Were you willing to put a discount on, like they have their own Be Global website and marketplace. And I remember putting a discount for, just I think it was 20% off. And that is when I realized that I did not have my subscriptions translated in enough languages, because I got requests for 147 languages and I had 2. Yeah.
Wow. So like, and so we'll get to the question here in a second, sure. Sabrina. Sure. But I did want to, so you mentioned B Corporation Global. What is that?
So once you become a benefit corporation, you are then invited to be a part of their marketplace in their community. So
Okay.
there's a Be Local, which is like the benefit corporation in your local area. So like there's Be Local Alabama, Be Local Georgia.
Okay.
They do a Southeastern, like they have
I
the
got
United
you.
States broken up into regions. And so they have regional conferences. I was
Okay.
blessed to be a speaker at Build Southeast, which is the B Corp for the Southeast United States. But because of that, I ended up meeting the CEO of Be Global, like the global
Wow.
benefit corporation function, and got featured in Canada. That's how we started getting our first group of Canadian students, because I was laughing. My friend was like, I saw you on a billboard here. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she's like, yes, because they were having a conference in Canada.
Uh-huh.
A very good friend of mine who lives there. And then that's how I got to Sweden. That's how I got to Australia. It's test prep is global. There are ACTs and SATs that happen all over the world, but that was the benefit of being a part of their global community. So they have their own marketplace that is open only to people who are benefit corporations. So you cannot market or advertise your business unless you are a certified B Corp in that community. But that community is maybe 900,000 businesses strong. Probably, I'm talking about like even maybe at this point, because they're constantly being benefit corporations certified on a daily basis. So when I started, I mean, I had access to millions of clients overnight with the click of a button.
Fantastic. So I appreciate that explanation. So Sabrina wants to know the difference between that and a nonprofit corporation.
So I'm gonna make you laugh, Sabrina. So see how it says benefits corporation? These places make lots of money. They are not set up to even go towards the nonprofit role. Like sometimes people think that nonprofits don't make money. The American Red Cross is a nonprofit. They make lots of money. But the difference that I saw between a nonprofit and a benefit corporation, I can accept monies from people who are interested in my mission, but that money is for them to buy my product. Do you see the difference? So it's not that if someone wanted to give me a $50,000 check as a nonprofit, there are different ways and different forms that you have to fill out for taxable reasons. So we have a nonprofit connected to our benefit corporation. The difference is in tax structure and focus. So you can be mission oriented and still have a very profitable business. That is what a benefit corporation does. You lead with your benefit, you lead with your mission. But by all means, everyone knows that you are there to have the money conversation and to sell goods and services. Whereas with a nonprofit, you know, many times you can be a part of a function and the goal is strictly to raise funds to be able to carry out the mission, but it's not necessarily to 10x. I hope that's helpful in making you see the difference.
She said, wow, so that's
okay, great. I just want to be very transparent to make sure that you understand the difference. Thanks for that question. It was amazing.
Yes. And now what was your strategy or thought process on going into pitches?
It definitely was not to win money. I went into pitch competitions to sharpen my ability to have conversations with decision makers. Now, decision makers can be a lot of things to a lot of people, but I went into pitch competitions because I was struggling with people understanding what I did, how I did it, and what I sold. And so I got tired of people just listening to what I had to say and getting warm fuzzies. And, oh, that's so awesome that you do this for these children. And then not realize, oh, it's not for those children. It's for your child as well. Like, yes, do I work in a niche market of kids that are 3 to 5 grade levels behind? Absolutely. But you who have graduated from Ivy League schools also need my services for your children because you need the score to be at legacy and mission. And so the pitch competitions helped me to be able to wear my own crown, to own my own language, to be able to speak directly to the people that needed to hear what I needed to say. And one of the things that's very, very beneficial about pitch competitions is your judges are usually people who have very, very large circles of influence. So if I look at the 6 pitch competitions that I've won, one of the people in my pitch competition became my advisor. One person became my fractional CFO. Another judge became, which was also, they were also a benefit corporation, introduced me to other people that could have funded me if I wanted funding at that point, but I wasn't doing a raise. One person became like my mom in business. I can call her at 3:00 in the morning, crying my eyes out, and she'll answer the phone and be like, "You're okay. You just are sleep deprived. Go back to bed. We'll talk later." So there were lots of things that came out of those pitch competitions. There are people I would have never met, even if I wanted to try to meet them. Like, they were CEOs of major corporations that had been invited. I mean, I'll use No Boundaries as an example. I won that pitch competition and met Eric Parker, who, is in charge of the entire platform that is now developing how we think about getting into pitch competitions. And he said, "Hey, I'd like you to meet such and such and such and such." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he's like, "They want to fund a group of kids to go through your program." Just, you become casual conversations in rooms that you would never have known that you could be a part of, strictly because when you win the pitch competition, you get free publicity. You get free access to CEOs and decision makers at higher levels, and then you get to sharpen your own message. So no, I didn't go to win money, but winning $200,000 wasn't so bad either. I'll say that.
Yeah. But I want to back up before we answer the next question. Is you said earlier that when you got started with thinking about the pitch competition, you went and watched a bunch of pitch competitions.
Absolutely.
Were there pitch competitions that already happened, or were they ones that were coming up?
No, I watched the winners of the pitch competitions I was in.
No. So what I'm saying, you
mean when I first started pitching?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, before I thought I heard you say that you when you were thinking about going to start pitching, you went out and just watched a bunch of pitch competitions just to kind of learn. So
Yes.
so I was asking, did you watch a lot of previous pitch competitions, or you just started watching pitch competitions that were coming up?
No. Okay, so yeah, let me be very clear about that. Like, if there's a specific pitch competition that has a specific vein that they're looking for, I will look at past winners of that pitch competition. Like, for
Gotcha.
example, for the EDPA, they were looking for social impact. I wanted to see what they meant by that. No, when I first started looking at pitches, I mean, this is very simple. I Googled how to pitch. And then I was like, oh, I could never say that. Like, you have to make your pitch has to become an extension of your personality and who you are. And so when I first started looking at pitches, I would be like, I would never say that. Like, so there's no reason for me to even write that down. And so I had to learn my own cadence.
Okay.
So when I first started, if you looked at my first pitch deck, when I say everybody on this Startup on the Blocks would laugh, I had every word that I wanted to say on that deck, because I would just sit and I would just read and read and read and read and read. And then I started looking at other people's pitches that were successful pitches. And I was like, they have no words. Like, there are no words, maybe 2 words. It's just a picture. And I was just like, okay, what is it that they're doing? Like, maybe they had speaker notes. I was just like, something is happening, because I'm reading and they are storytelling.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, I need to storytell in a way that people understand my story and understand it in a way that they want to do the thing that I asked them to do, that I called them to action. So sometimes I had a pitch that was just like, I need more people on my board. That was what I was asking for. I wasn't asking for money. And so then, other pitches had different calls to action. But one thing I took away from becoming a good pitcher was if I had done a good job in telling the story compellingly, it was a no-brainer because by the end, before I asked them, they were ready to do before I asked. That's when I realized, okay, so before I get to the last slide, I could look out in the audience and I could see the judges going, I need to sign up my kid for this. And there have been pitch competitions that I have not won where I have learned very quickly that me trying to get other people, like one of the pitch competitions we didn't even place, someone else did the pitch on my slides. And that was such the wake up call for me because I was like, I would have never said this. Like I wouldn't have put it that way. This is somebody really trying to explain what they really don't understand. And that's when I realized, okay, it's more than slides.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So I guess it's Sabrina has this thing where you're a solo founder, and how did you build your team?
I was a solo founder. I was a consultant. And the way I built my team was literally writing down those essential functions. For example, we do test prep. And it was like, okay, who could do this if I had more clients than I could take? And what would I be looking for in that person? Then I hired that person. Then I trained that person. I was like, if you had to find one of me and one of you, how would you do it? And to this day, she hires all of our academic coaches. And she does not hire them based on their resumes. She hires them based on the skill set that we need to work with the children that we work with. That is not something I could have found by just going on Indeed and asking for, oh, okay, are you a teacher and have you taught XYZ? In fact, to be honest, a lot of times the teachers that come through our training program, they're like, well, I made a 30 on the ACT 20 years ago. Like, I'm like, yes, but the ACT test that you took as a part of our pre-test, right now you have a 12. And it just shocks them. I was like, well, that's what we're trying to say. Like, children will immediately ask you, like, have you taken a test recently? Those kinds of things. So I tend to hire based on skill, not on degree, and even not on experiences that people may have on their resume, because that skill set may not be a skill set that I need to help my business go to the next level.
Gotcha. Okay. Sabrina has another question.
Sure.
How did you decide what competitions to participate in?
So this is how pitches go, Sabrina. If you go to one pitch competition and you do well, maybe you don't win, but you place. Maybe you don't even place, but people like the way that you did it. They will invite you to other pitch competitions. It's kind of like competitive dance. It's like you go and you do a great job, and people are like, "Ooh, I like the way that you guys did this." And there are pitch competitions everywhere. I mean, like, honestly, you can join different organizations that are startup ecosystem organizations like Techstars or F6S. I mean, there's so many of them. They all have a list of all the different pitch competitions that are happening. And I will tell you this, which is one of the best advice that I got from one of the organizations that wants to fund me now. He said, when you find yourself winning lots and lots of pitch competitions, but you don't find any investors willing to help you scale, that's the time you need to stop pitching, because now you've gotten comfortable in pitching and grabbing another $20,000 or $30,000, and you're losing sight of, do I really want to scale? Even if it's family operatives or angel investors, like, don't get so caught up in the $200,000 that you won that gave you a little bump to get you to the next level. How does this strategically help you? And now I'm at a point where I get invited to pitch competitions, and some of those competitions I don't go to because it's not going to help build my business. It's just because, 6-time pitch winner Valencia Belle will be here pitching, and it becomes like a WWE fest. Like, no, not interested in being slammed.
Well, they want to they want to say they had something to do with your success.
Right.
And
So like no, those like at this point, like if it's not opening up a market for me or giving me the ability to meet people that will help my business get to the next level, I normally just, gracefully decline at this point.
mhm. Yes, that's great. So like the bottom line is, uh, for this pitching, you watch successful pitch, how the people who won the pitch competitions, you kind of learn from that, and so that's great. Um, yeah, but you got a lot of invitations to pitch competitions. So like that's what I tell people in the startup world. Your track record in social media profile from F6S and all these things you post on LinkedIn, that's what tells people that you're actually working on your idea of building your company, and you're going to get so many invitations you can't even accept them all because
That's
people
very
know
true.
you. That's your credibility. People know that you're literally you're validated. But if you stay to yourself out there, nobody knows what you're building, so you don't have any credibility, even if it's the greatest thing in the world.
So true. And my father passed away last year, and he
I'm
used to
sorry to
always
hear
say,
that.
"Let your work, thank you, let your work speak for you." And it was so funny because I was in New Orleans pitching, and I called him because I wanted him to FaceTime him because he was the person that I would always say when he watched the pitch, he would give me real feedback. Like some
Yeah,
people are like, oh, you won and you should be. My dad would be like, on the third slide, oh, you messed that one completely up. Like it was
yeah,
horrible. And so I will tell you that you need to find an accountability partner to help you grow in your pitch. Like they'll give you a deck. They'll tell you the deck is the slides that they want you to do.
hmm,
Um, Stay with that deck. Like if they ask you for an intro to your company, and then they ask you for your problem and how you solve the problem, and then what differentiates you, your traction, your team, your measurables, and your ask. That's what the judges are looking for. And when you go outside of that, you may think that you have the best deck ever, and you will get the worst score because they are looking for 1, 2, 3,
so
4, 5, 6. And people don't realize that because you have 5 or 6 judges looking at 12 people for 5 minutes, and they're just like, this person, they didn't say their traction, they didn't do this, they didn't do that.
yeah.
So they'll give you what they want you to know, and you immediately give them back what they're asking for.
Yes. And so basically in our 30-day business model design course, which we have just started this week, at the end of the 30 days, the last thing after you go through those desirability, viability, and feasibility, you take all that information and put it in your 10-slide business model story pitch. So everything you're
Oh,
describing is what this business model design do. And so what I've noticed, like we did like I'm trying to think. So 4 with Blacks in Technology. We're on our 5th one with our own for the business model design. And so I see the pattern of what people are doing. So there's these 10 slides, and you're going to get graded on those 10 slides. So why would you put another slide in there that you're not going to get graded on?
because it's so close to your heart and it's your baby, and you're like, hey, look at my little Simba and how he's going to take over the jungle. And then you forget that you now have added, especially like me, I read off my slides. So like my sister, I'm sure she's gonna laugh when she's on watching. She's the person that was like, no ma'am. And she took like half my slides out, and I was like, I can't do the pitch because everything that I need you took out. And she's like, stand up there and say what you need to say. We're gonna do a picture, 2, 3 words at the most. But she is a great storyteller, and she helped me to curve down a lot of the slides that I thought
Yeah.
were important.
So the good news is for all the founders out there watching, our Lean Stack platform, that's what it does in this 30-day business model design thing. It's literally getting to a point where you can pitch your idea or your business model clearly and concisely. Your business model is that lean canvas, and no matter how you look, everything you said about the slides, this comes off that lean canvas. So
For
it's
sure.
everything you do is going to lead you up to that business model story pitch. And so that's kind of what I wanted to make sure people understand. So with our startup founder best practices and our Black Founder program, what I realize is that all this opportunity out there, it doesn't mean anything if you can't communicate the way they want you to communicate. And so that's why we do the Black Founder program, and we can give anybody access to that wants it, because it's literally going to teach you how to communicate what you're building the way the people want to hear it. And so what you bring to the table here, Dr. Bell, is people need to start thinking about it like you're taking a SAT, ACT, and you need to attack that test, because if you don't, you're not going to get a good score. You're not going to get into pitch competition. You're not going to get into this pre-accelerated program. And that's what I've been trying to tell people for years. And so, but I appreciate your approach to the testing, and the entrepreneurs should have a way to know they're doing good. And so
I was like, thanks for using our tagline, attack the test. That's amazing.
I don't, yeah. All right. So do you have any parting advice or information you want? It looks like this might be a good question right here. And Quinn is asking this question. Do you see it?
If I could go back.
So what advice you would give yourself to when you started right now?
Oh, Quinn, take your notebook out. Number one, it's okay not to know. It's absolutely okay not to know. And it takes great courage to ask. Understanding that when you ask, if you're not asking clearly, you might not get the response that you want, because people have no earthly idea what you're talking about. Fail fast. Once you fail fast and fail forward. Just let it go. If the prototype's not working, just find another way to do it. Give yourself grace, particularly if you don't have anyone in your ecosystem who has built $1 billion company. It's very hard for you to have people to talk to who may not have been through exits before. I would also say, understand that, everybody has their way that they approach the hard part of being entrepreneur. So I believe in God. And so I believe that my program was God-given. And so there are going to be people who are not going to understand the decisions that I make, because they're made by other things. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think that you have to have roots, but also understand where your wings are going. And so if you don't have roots and you don't know what guides you, when these big winds come, you can be just tossed away because you don't have anything grounding you, and everybody loves your business, and you're the cat's meow for 5 seconds. Then something else comes along and your business might not even be something that people are even looking at anymore. But you have to know why you became an entrepreneur in the first place. That grounding will keep you when you're not making sales, when things just don't seem to be going right, when your key person decides that they don't want to work for you anymore. I mean, life, as the kids say, be lifing, things happen. But if you know your why and you always lead with your why, like Simon Sinek says, the how and the what will always find its way to you. If you lead with your why, you'll be fine.
And fantastic. That's great. And normally at the beginning of this, I give a shout out to our sponsors, and I better do that. So before we get off here, and I appreciate you sharing all this great information. And I definitely learned a lot from what you're saying, and I think it gives a lot of credibility to folks. Just so what all the things you said you didn't have, we actually offer that.
Yeah, I'm like, where were you when I started?
yeah, but you actually gave some strategies that are some good takeaways, like hiring these fractional people to do the stuff that knew how to go out and get these big contracts, but you have to have the capability to fulfill these things. And so that's kind of great. So so we want to help Black founders, and we actually help all founders, but but we want to reach as many Black founders as we can. So we partner with these different organizations. We partner with the software tool companies to kind of help give the founders tools to grow their business and build their capacity. And you see Make Startup on here, Eric.
I know. It was just like I took a picture of your founders to literally write them thank you emails and letters, and I was like, look at Make Startups. I was like, shout out to Make
So we partnered
Startups.
with them about a year ago. Went through their executive leadership thing, and I think what they're doing is pretty amazing.
Incredible.
And Eric is a down to earth kind of guy, so that's great. Now, but we also need those funders. And if I can get back to that slide, and so like people like Florida Power and Light and Innisfree and the Residence Bank. So all of these organizations and banks and whoever, they actually fund a lot of the stuff that we do to help founders. Yeah, and so that's and so like you mentioned, you have prices for people that can't pay, but then what the strategy we like to use is get the sponsors to actually pay for those students.
Amazing. And I see another one of my Renaissance Bank, very happy for the work that they have helped me to do, and the SBDC. Yes.
So
and even Blue Cross Blue Shield, but not Florida Blue, more Alabama Blue. But oh my gosh, awesome.
See, like all these companies, like you would think, well, what does a hotel have to do with startups? So they sponsored our first 4 or 5 pitch competitions back in 2020 and 2021, 22.
For sure.
You see, because they want to help people, do this. So let me ask you one last question. I just thought of.
Sure.
So did you have to pay to get in any of those competitions, or to pay to get in those?
No.
And so some people just miss out because they think you have to pay, but the ecosystem is there to help you, and they miss out on all these training opportunities, all these pitch competitions, and it's there to help you do it. And so I wanted to
let me give this little nugget.
Go ahead.
Think of attending a pitch competition as a part of your marketing budget.
Okay.
Because if you get selected, that pitch competition is going to market their pitch competition, which is all of the free marketing within their circle of influence. If you win, God bless, they're going to do an interview with all of the local TV stations, all of the local news outlets. That's free publicity for you as well. You may not have a marketing budget, because when I started, we didn't have one. Like, we didn't have a Facebook page, but just think about it in that perspective. The other reason that you want to pitch in pitch competitions is there are other founders there. To be quite honest, my platform builder was somebody I met at a pitch competition, and my chief commercial officer is someone who was being a chief commercial officer for another business and heard our pitch and said, I fractionally am going to finish working with them in a year, and I want to help you build yours to $1 billion business. He's like, I believe in what you're doing. And I went, I'd have never met this person if I hadn't gotten that pitch competition.
And believe it or not, that's what Ash says is the purpose for learning how to pitch your thing clearly and concisely, to get all your stakeholders, all your partners, your co-founders, and literally you're actually a living example of that's what the purpose of learning how to pitch clearly and concisely.
Yes, and you make a lot of good startup friends. I mean, you're going to need some people who understand you're crazy. Being an entrepreneur is a different kind of crazy. You want people that you can call and be like, and they're like, absolutely. You just kind of scream at each other, and then you laugh and you hang up the phone and you're like, did you make your marks? Yeah, we made our marks for this car. So
So we appreciate you sharing your story. And if you just hold on, I'm going to go ahead and end it. And if you just hold on 1 second there, we'll see everybody next week.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.